may know her best from the time she was just 12 years old, starring on Broadway as one of the Von Trapps from The Sound of Music. You also may know her from other shows such as Hello Dolly, Something Rotten, Chaplin, Sunday in the Park with George, Anything Goes, Wicked, QVC, Hairspray the movie, and the Broadway hit itself, and she's also starred in a ton of other stuff as well. Along with that, she's also currently starring in a new upcoming girl band group, the Girl Band Project. I'm so ecstatic to have Haley Pachun as my guest on today's episode of My World with Stories podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. By the way, you're on my 20th podcast, so
I'm honored.
you've been doing Broadway for such a long time. You've actually made your Broadway debut at 12 years old. But I first kind of want to know before we get into like all the Broadway stuff, how'd you like first get introduced and started into doing theater?
Ooh, that's a good question. I just really loved it. Like my mom always said that, and I remember this as well. I would watch Disney movies all the time. And especially Cinderella was like one of my favorites because I had an apron that I would wear. And then I had two little Gus, and I forget the other mouse's name. Do you remember his name? I forget. Someone who's listening to this is going to be screaming it while we're saying it. But I had two little stuffed animal sizes. I mean, they were like mouse size of them, and I put them in my pocket, and I would spread like frozen corn on the floor when she would be feeding the ducks in the scene. And I was like, well, I need the prop too. So I'd like run to my mom and I was like, I need my corn. And so I'd like spread it on the floor, and I was always wearing a costume. So I think my parents just, let me try everything. And I really loved dance. I loved to sing. I loved getting attention, and I just think that my studio that I went to as well was Miller Marley School of Dance and Voice. It did a great job of just integrating everything, making everything available to its students. So I think that's kind of how I got involved. And my community in Kansas City as well, where I'm from, is very community theater focused. There's a lot of professional theater there. So there were always opportunities to try out for things.
Nice. I kind of relate to you saying that little story because I was like growing up, I was so obsessed with Mamma Mia that like I would just pretend that like I was there, but I wasn't. So I
Yes.
totally get it.
Yes.
So when everyone hears the word Broadway, they think, obviously a ton of things. But your Broadway debut was at such a very young age, and a lot of people that I've had on this podcast have either had their Broadway debut later or, in different times. But I want to know like your story of how you got to Broadway.
So I had done a production of Oliver in Kansas City. It was actually a touring production. Andrea McArdle was on it, and Richard Klein. And in every city of this tour, they would hire local kids, and you kind of had to audition to be in it. And then if you were extra like good, honestly, then you also, not only were you part of the uh food, glorious food, like those kids, if you were like the really big dancery ones, then you got to be a part of the Fagans gang as well. So I got to be a part of the Fagans gang as well. And I got very close with the dance captain. And he had heard that this same touring company that was doing this Oliver was going to be doing The Sound of Music next year. So me and another boy who was in the Oliver production, we flew out to LA for the auditions, and he actually got it. I didn't get it because one of the nuns who was going to be in it, they gave it to her daughter, which makes sense. Like if your kid's a performer and they're good, give it to them so you can all go on tour. So he did the tour, but this was like not the Broadway production. This was like I can't even remember. It wasn't Theater Works, but it was like something not, not a Broadway production. So by the time my friend finished that Sound of Music tour, he was kind of done with Sound of Music, and his mom had heard that the Broadway company of Sound of Music was having auditions for their tour. And she was like, he's kind of done with Sound of Music. He doesn't want to go in for this, but you should. So my mom and I, we were in town for, I think, spring break, and we just called the casting office at Binder and we were like, hey, we want to audition. And they allowed it to happen. Like, this does not happen. And you're not supposed to do any of what we did, but it happened. So I auditioned and they really liked me. They said, can you come back next week? We flew back. They were actually considering me for the Broadway company instead of the tour. And they sent me to the theater to be measured because, the Von Trapp children have to be a certain height. And also, when you're going into a Broadway show, you also really have to be a certain height, body type, kind of, if you're going to be replacing someone, because, 60 out of 40, they're not going to remake the costumes for you. Costumes are very expensive. They're couture costumes, they're made for us. And I needed to fit the costumes as well. Also, being a child actor, they have to give you growth room. And I was a fourth of an inch too tall to then be given my growth room of like 2 inches. So I actually didn't get the job. They called and said, we love you. It's just you're a fourth of an inch too tall. We're so sorry. And then they called back a couple days later and said, just, ignore that. You got the job. You start on Tuesday. So it was very last minute and a complete reversal of what I thought my life was going to be like. And then my mom and I moved to New York. My dad would come visit every now and then. I think like every other weekend he came up because he still had to work. And that was in 7th grade.
Wow.
Pretty wild.
Yeah, that is wild. After the Sound of Music, you continued being on Broadway as an adult. And you've done like Hello Dolly, Something Rotten, Anything Goes, Sunday in the Park with George, and Hairspray, the movie and the musical. Now, everyone knows what Hairspray is. How did that whole, I guess you could say, your journey started for that show?
Yeah, I call my Hairspray journey, those were my college years. I went to the University of Hairspray instead of college because what would have been my sophomore year, I was on the road with Hairspray. The start of what would have been my junior year, I was filming the movie. And then what would have been the second semester of my junior year into all of my senior year was Broadway. So I went to the University of Hairspray. I auditioned for Hairspray when I was going to school in Boston. I took the Fung Law bus into New York. I auditioned. I made it to the very end. They kept my info. And that was like October of my freshman year. And then it was, I don't know, probably July or August of that next summer. I'm shopping for bed linens with my mom to go back to school. And I get a call from Craig Burns at Telsey saying, can you come in tomorrow for a Hairspray audition? And my mom was like, yes, of course. Like, we'll make it work. Cause I'm on the phone. I was like, they want me to go to New York tomorrow. And she's like, tell them you'll be there. So we got me on a flight that night. I stayed with a friend. It was an invited call. So they were looking for a specific track, which turned out to be the Tammy track. And there were probably, I don't know, 16 of us. And we had to learn the Penny and Amber sides. It was the first time I'd ever belted in my life. Like, I'm a coloratura soprano. So I just made it work. I think it was nerves and energy. I did it. And I got a call the next day saying I booked the show and I would be joining the national tour within like a couple weeks. So we called my school and said, I will not be returning. And I joined the road company. And then I auditioned for the movie when I was out in LA on tour. I was playing Penny at the time on tour. And Adam Shankman and his team came to the show that night. They saw me on as Penny. And I got a call the next day from him saying, we want you to be in the councils, one of the council members, and they did not know that I had played Tammy on the road. They sat with all of us for about a week and a half, not knowing who would be what council member. They wanted to get to know us first. And then they gave me Tammy, not knowing that I am Tammy, you know? And then for Broadway, I got a call from Craig Burns my first day on set with Hairspray movie saying, we have an opening for you in the Broadway company for Tammy. When can you join? And I said, well, my last day on set, I'm done December 1st. And he said, great. So you'll start December 2nd. So it was nonstop ponying for like 3 years.
Wow. Yeah. Is there like, obviously movies and musicals are obviously different sometimes, but what was like cool different for you between both?
I think what's so cool is like I can still go back and watch the movie and relive all of the memories that I had during that time. You know, I know like when we filmed You Can't Stop the Beat, that was kind of during Thanksgiving time. And I remember we had our craft services trucks outside and there were tents. And I didn't get out of costume anytime we had to eat because we were in corsets underneath all of our costumes. And so I had to be aware, like if I got out of my corset and then ate a big Thanksgiving meal from craft services, I would not be able to get back into my costume. So I remember like very vividly Thanksgiving, I'm sitting in a tent in my costume, like looking at my plate and I'm like, I can't eat any of this because my corset's already too tight, you know? But it's just little fun memories like that.
Yeah.
Whereas Broadway, like you really have to live in the moment. Whereas film, it's like you can go back at any time and watch what you've done.
Yeah, totally. So you've also done other pieces of work. But I want to know specifically, you talked about replacing. I want to know like when you're going in, like say if it was like Anything Goes or even Hairspray, like how do you make it like Haley-ish? Like how do you make it your own?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Um, every show kind of allows different things. There might be different moments in the show where something has to be very specific with how it was set. But I think what's always so nice about what we do as performers is we are hired for who we are and what we bring of ourselves in it. So they want you to bring yourself to it too. But also, you know, there's things that like I'm thinking of Anything Goes because you mentioned that. Like I replaced Joyce Chittick, who is Broadway's Joyce Chittick. Like she is iconic and one of the best Broadway dancers ever. And she dances very differently than I do, but there were definite things that inspired my performance because of what she had set as virtue that I was like, well, that is brilliant. And I want to carry that on, but I also could never be Joyce because she's a completely different human than I am. So it's knowing what to respect that's already been set and then know when you can bring yourself in. And you know, people will guide you through.
Right. So now we're getting to my favorite part, which we get to talk about Wicked, which I know is your favorite. So you actually sent a message to my school this past year, which past month. And I just want to say that they're still talking about it.
Oh, that makes me so happy.
You should have seen the group chat. We have like this big group chat and everyone like found out. I just want to say it was super helpful and our choreographer even texted in the group chat and was like, "Oh, you should listen to this girl. Like listen to your choreographer." So, I just want
Oh,
that was very helpful. Um
good. I'm glad.
yeah, we had a lot of fun doing that show.
Good.
And
It looked great.
oh, thanks. But yeah, it was a fun run. But anyways, getting back to you. So you played Linda on the Wicked National Tour, and I know this was a bucket list thing for you to, do. So, how did that whole process start?
That process was 6 years of auditions. Yeah. And I only ever auditioned for Glinda. At one time they did say to me, you'll never play this role unless you understudy her first.
Mhm.
And there was just something in me where I was like, no, I'm going to only go in for Glinda and play only Glinda. Um, and I think it also happened like right time, right place. Like, I think journey through life makes you a better performer. And, at that time of my life, like I had been going through stuff, and I think that made me smarter, and I could even do it. It was 9 years ago when I did the role. So if I did it today, I'd be even better because I've learned through that. But it also like was the right time to put like me and Jenny together, Jennifer Denoya. It was her first time playing the role full time, and we are best friends, and we became best friends during that time. And I'm so thankful for Wicked for bringing us together.
But then I guess we know there's blame to share, and none of it seems to matter anymore. Like a sharp from the passes aside, like a stream that meets a boulder halfway through the one who can say if I've been changed for the better. I do believe I have been changed for the
I
better.
have a question. Would you ever go back and do it?
Yes, of course. Who wouldn't?
You've also done regional theater. You've done Crazy for You, Legally Blonde. That's my favorite.
It's so good. It's so much fun to do and so much fun to watch too.
I love Elwood, and when I saw your resume, when I saw, oh, she played Elwood, I was like, oh my god, like that's so you.
Yeah, pink, glitter, it's all the things.
Elwood kind of reminds me of like Glinda a little bit because she's
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Um, but I really wanted to touch upon Gypsy because you've actually played opposite along Beth Level, who I had on my podcast and I still talk to. Um, everyone has their own experience with her. What was your experience with her?
I love her. I love her so much. I always have. I knew her before doing Gypsy with her. Um, and to finally be with her and then to like have her play my mom, like, I mean, she is so giving and supportive. And she also, started as a dancer on Broadway and has worked her way up. And I just admire her so much in every way. And her husband Adam was also in the show, and so to be with them was wonderful. And doing it at the Muni is the most magical place on earth, and Gypsy's my favorite musical ever. So it was all of these bucket list things of like, wow, nothing will get better than that. And I'm so glad I got to do that.
Yeah, she's pretty cool.
She
Uh,
is.
I last year I think I obviously I started the podcast and stuff, but when like the summer hit and stuff, I was texting her and I was like, "Oh my god, I'm so excited cuz I'm going to be seeing you in a concert." Because she was doing it down in Provincetown. So, my grandparents scheduled a trip long weekend to go down there, and what I did not know was I didn't know that they were gonna do meet and greets and stuff because of COVID. So, they actually did meet and greets. So we're like, after the whole show's all over, we're sitting down, and I was like, "Why are we still here?" Like,
Right.
and I was like, "What's going on?" And then, um, they told me they're like, "Oh, we gave you a meet and greet with Beth." I was like, "Wait, what?"
Oh my gosh, that is so exciting.
Yeah, and, like, I mean, I've talked to her on Zoom and stuff, but, like, to meet someone that you adore so much in person is so special, and she was
Yeah. Yeah. I love her so much.
What was it like performing in Gypsy? Like, because you performed at the Muni, which is a big place to perform at.
The Muni is 11,000 seats. It's outside, and you learn the show and you tech it and everything from day one until your first performance is 11 days in the middle of the summer in St. Louis. So and you're rehearsing outside, you're doing the show outside, like everything's outside. It's the greatest summer camp that adults can ask for because we're getting paid to do what we love with all of our friends, just like having a great time in the middle of a park. It's kind of wonderful. Gypsy was my first Muni show, and I've been wanting to work at the Muni for many years. So not only I wanted to work there so badly, but then they're doing my favorite show in a role that I've never done. My first professional show I ever did, I was Baby June. And I was like, I have to play Dainty June someday. Like, I don't even want to I've done Dainty June. And so now it's like, okay, I want to graduate to Louise now. But it was really fun to like be mean because June is not nice. She's not a nice person. And that was kind of fun to be like really mean and to wear the most ridiculous costumes. I love all things dresses and girly and frilly. And so you're this mean girl dressed in doll clothes. And like, it was such a dream. I loved it. You just kind of had to be a little ridiculous too. Especially in that final number, which is like the 5th number of the show. It's her final number, June and her farm boys. And I think it's one of the best shows in musical theater. And it was a great first show to do at the Muni as well, because my part was small. So the stress was low, and I just got to sit back and watch and learn. And I love working there so much.
I saw like videos on the Muni's YouTube page, and I was like looking at you. I was like, oh my God. Like that's like everyone's probably dream to do that role.
Yes, I agree.
Moo, moo, moo.
She's an extra special friend of mine.
Moo, moo, moo.
I like everything about her fine.
Moo, moo, moo.
She likes to moo in the moonlight when the moody moon appears. And
I want to touch upon your newest project that you're working on. The Girl Band Project, featuring you, Natalie Gallo, who I've had on here, and Michelle West. Now,
Yeah.
you obviously on Instagram, you guys are promoting stuff and all over social media. But like, for those that don't know, like, what is the Girl Band Project?
So if you love pop music from the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, you're going to love our group. It started originally, my friend Travis Nesbitt, who I went to school with for my 1 year that I went to school, he created the Boy Band Project. And they, from the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, sang music from all boy bands. And for many years, he's been thinking about forming a girl group, and he finally did. So it's 3 of us, and we're singing songs from your favorites of, Danity Kane, TLC, Destiny's Child, Wilson Phillips. And right now it's mostly corporate gigs, but we have a show coming up January 26th at 54 Below. And from there, hopefully we'll be doing shows on cruise ships, big concerts. The Boy Band Project works a lot, and we're hoping that we get to follow their success.
I'm giving you everything, all that joy can bring. This I swear. And all that I want from you is a promise you will be there.
Hit me!
One
when Natalie posted on Instagram about this, and that was like right after I got the video from you, I was like, wait, is that Haley?
What a wild world. What's so small?
Yeah, yeah, but she's incredible too.
She's amazing. What a voice. Holy cow.
I always ask everyone this because I think everyone has like a different say to say. Um like, do you have any advice for those out there that are aspiring to be what you are, or just anything in general?
Yeah, one thing I always say, and I was actually talking with a friend about this today, is get involved with as much as you can. And that doesn't mean just do every show. It means be on the crew for a show, be a stage manager, learn how the wardrobe works, work the box office, be an usher, because it's very important that you learn what all the different roles are within our team, because it is a team effort to put on a show. And sometimes you might find out that you actually like something more until you try something, you don't know if you'll like it. And I just think that's very important to, if you have the opportunity, try it out.
Looking of what you've done in your career, where do you see yourself like in the next 10 or 20 years? Like, do you want to like conquer anything? I mean, you've already conquered a ton.
I don't know. And I'm kind of figuring that out right now. I'm being very open to opportunities that come to me. I know that I don't want to be doing 8 shows a week, in 10 years. I don't know if I even want to be doing 8 shows a week in 2 years, but I do love to perform. But it's finding in what capacity I want to be doing that now. So I don't know. That's a very difficult question for me at this moment, because I'm really trying to weigh all my options and see what I like to do.
Yeah.
It's exciting but scary.
Oh yeah. Like, and I mean, like, I wrote that question for you, but then I think about it myself. I'm like, oh my God. I'm thinking, I'm like, ugh.
Yeah, it's scary.
Yeah. But I think like whatever happens, it will be great.
Yes.
Oh, last time I did this, I actually did it with Natalie, and I haven't done it since, but I thought, why don't I do it with you and bring it back again? But I wanted to play like a little game with you. Is that okay with you?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay, so the 2 rules are you choose one or the other. It's almost like ice or water, like that. And you only have 60 seconds. So I'll start a timer.
Oh my gosh, it's so official. Okay, I'm ready.
Ready, set, go. Glinda or Galinda?
Glinda.
Hot cocoa or hot chocolate?
There's a difference? Hot chocolate.
TikTok or Insta?
Instagram.
Comet or Cupid?
Comet.
Wizard or Oz?
Oz.
Cookies or cream?
Cookies.
Musicals or movies?
Musicals.
We could say both.
Yeah.
Be a replacement in a show or originate?
Originate.
2022 or 2023?
2023.
Giving or receiving?
Receiving.
Okay, you made it at 5 seconds. Great.
Those were good.
Is there like any projects that you could currently like talk about, or anything that you want to promote on here?
Ooh, I guess I'm not really working on any projects, but I have a lot of concerts coming up in January. So I would just say, promote myself, because every week is something different with my schedule. So you never know. So you can just follow me at Hayley_Podschun, HAYLEY_PODSCHUN.
Awesome. I just wanted to thank you for doing this so much with
You're
me.
so welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for listening and watching to My World with Stories podcast. For more info, go to Instagram and Facebook at My World with Stories podcast, and make sure that you give us a like, a subscribe, a follow, whatever you want. Do it because we love you guys so much. And thanks for being with us. Bye.